do our advertising here. Okay, thank you for coming. We're excited about our second go-round with spring ball. Obviously, a lot has happened, and hopefully we have a lot better foundation in which to get started with our team. I think just to me, the new season kind of began with the completion of the bowl game, which was a positive for us for a lot of reasons. You know, I think the fact that our team probably played our best football the last month of the year in general, and then completed with a nice win over UCLA was a good thing. There's been a good vibe in the weight room with our team. I think we're getting a lot of good work. Everything has just basically been kind of uneventful that way, which is a good thing. Guys have just worked, and I think we've made a lot of progress in some areas. We've tried to pay close attention in the off-season program to not only strength and speed development, but also injury prevention. You know, we've got to do better with that entry into each phase of the year. Every time you enter into spring ball, enter into fall camp, that's where the muscle injuries, the hamstrings, the groins, I hope we can avoid that. We've tried to pay special attention to that. And then we're looking forward to, you know, we have a foundation of football on offense, defense, special teams. What we're looking for as a goal is to basically be fundamentally better inside of all those things. The techniques we use, how we play the game, just trying to help guys get better with their technique and fundamentals. We can plug all that stuff into plays, but the key is just helping guys run better routes, get better technique in blocking, get better position to defeat blocks, and then be able to make plays. Through the years, looking at spring practice, what you do that many months before the season, I think that if you can come away with good fundamentals and not necessarily a whole volume of what you want to do during the season, because really how much retention is there, you know, I think that the focus for us is going to be just playing better football within the framework of what you do. And you know, we'll have to run plays doing that. We'll have to keep installing. I think we've got a better idea of direction that we want to go. Like, you know, our recipe for winning that last game probably can't be exactly like that for every game, but as far as the format for how we approached it with running the football, the action passes we used it, the specific limited drop back game that we had, all those parts can be a good vision for what you want to do going forward. We've got a pretty good depth chart in place. You know, we're looking at 120-ish, I think, is on the depth charts as we put it forward. Sometimes we're 4 deep at some spots, which is good. We are going to try to practice with 2 fields like we did a year ago. I see that as being the best way to provide practice and opportunity for guys, so that we can both coach and get a good look at more players that way. I love the numbers that we have here at Nebraska, but you have to be a little bit creative if you're going to really give them an opportunity and get a chance to coach them. So we're looking at doing that same sort of thing that we did a year ago. And then, you know, we start out, I don't know if you remember, the first 2 days have to be in only helmets as gear. So you go in shorts and a jersey and helmets. And we have 2 days like that, and then we'll get into full gear after that and expand our practices, what we do. It's kind of funny because you want to establish some things physically that you want to get done, but you're in shorts on the first day, so it might not necessarily look like that picture as you see it as what we want to establish, but it's just the nature of the deal and probably a good rule that they have in place to break into spring practice. Okay, from there, I'm going to open it up. You guys ask questions, and then we'll get Billy and John up here, and you can visit with them.
Mike, can you talk about the quarterbacks, how you plan to practice them, and what the outlook is there?
Yeah. Ross, that's probably always the number one question as we talk about in a staff meeting about how to do rotation in personnel for practice, particularly early in fall camp and always during spring practice. The quarterback deal is Tommy's going to obviously, with a group, take the first turns, and we will team him with Riker a lot right away. Those guys will alternate with their group. The other group will probably alternate the other three quarterbacks, A.J., Bush, Zach Darlington, and then of course our freshman Patrick O'Brien. Now, we also have the option to be able to bring one of those guys over, rotate with Riker and Tommy when we want to. We haven't really talked about when or how that's going to occur, but that's the hardest position, right? I mean, there's one spot, and that's why it's very important. I think it's kind of a residual bonus in being able to practice with two teams. Because otherwise, you're talking about 5 quarterbacks, and getting them adequate work with one field, one team would be hard to do. So we're looking at providing 5 guys, pretty good number of turns that way.
Generally speaking, Mike, how do you like that 5? Is that a good number of quarterbacks?
Yeah, I think generally it is. Yeah, and probably that would be what we would always try to keep it at. When you get a little bit smaller, you might feel a little bit nervous at times, or you might be lacking in some part of the development phase of quarterbacks being ready to take over whenever you give them the opportunity to do that. So, and then the other part is I've really been guilty of this, had too many guys in there. I don't even. I think I might have told you before, but at one time that room was full, and they just don't get to do enough. It's not fair. It kind of waters down what you want to do with the quarterbacks that need to get ready to play in the games, and then you don't really get a chance to develop people like that. So 5 is, I don't know if it's a magic number, Steve, but it's close to what we've been shooting for.
Who do you plan to start out on the left side of that line? Do you want to move Nick over to the left side?
Yeah, that's a good question, Brian. We talked about that a lot because, those guys get used to playing on one side, and so it's a big deal. But probably because of Nick's experience and his ability, and with what we do, we're going to move him to the left tackle. And then Neville will actually line up as the right tackle on the first day.
What about center? What's your outlook at that position as far as who you want to look at this spring?
Well, that's going to be fluid a little bit, but we're actually going to work Utter in there. We've got some issues with non-injury situations and availability for practice, which sounds funny. And the explanation there is that we've got like Thurston's got an issue with a class as a senior he has to take to graduate, and the timing with our practices in his class is not good. So we've got to be able to compensate for that a little bit. So Utter's going to play center, Decker's going to play center, and Zach Hannon is going to play center. So we'll start out like that. The way we do it, we hope with older guys, a guy like Utter, we kind of teach in total in there technically, and we want them to have knowledge of the big picture so that he can kind of, if he moves back to guard, we'll be okay. But that's how we'll start.
How about the guard spot?
Well, we've got Whitaker and Farmer lined up at right guard, and then we've got Gerald Foster and Jalen Barnett lined up at left guard.
Who else do you have at tackle?
Out at right tackle is Neville and Hahn and Conrad, and then left tackle is Nick and Christian Gaylord and Dwayne Johnson.
That right tackle spot, I mean, how big of a question is that for you? Just because you don't have one guy in there that played a snap of football at the Big Ten level.
Yeah, that's it's like we said off the top, that offensive line deal is going to be that both the practice reps and the development of that group are going to be a key component to our success. There's no doubt about it. And there's no sense in being nervous about it yet. We just got to go to work and get these guys going. Neville is a outstanding prospect to play. I mean, athletic ability, size, all that stuff that goes with it. So we just got to help him be prepared to play.
Mike, how are you going to divide up the running backs? You know, you talked about quarterbacks.
Yeah.
How do you think we'll split up the running backs?
Well, we certainly like the way that Newby and Ozigbo finished the season, right? I mean, those guys, I think, if they continue to work hard, grow and develop, they should be continue to be players for us. And we have liked the rotation that we've used that last game. You know, we've done it mostly in my career. We've had a tailback that was the starting tailback, and we gave the ball to him 30, 35 times a game. And that's what we did. One other time before I came here, we actually had a rotation. Both guys were good. They both contributed. They needed both to play, and they earned that. And then what we got into last year with a good picture was a rotation that felt good. When you run the ball effectively, you really feel good about the rotation because they all go in, they run the ball, they do a good job, and you feel good about putting them in, and you stay fresh. And sometimes you provide a little bit different change of pace with a back. You know, Newby's going to be different than Divine in some ways, so that would be a good combination for us. Now we're looking for other players. You know, if indeed those guys have worked hard and continue to progress, and they should be better this year. If that is a stable factor, then we're looking for other guys now. You know, we're really looking to see what Wilbon does. You know, Wilbon has ability. He showed some spark last year. He's a real good kid. I think he's been working real hard. Just looking forward to him stepping up and seeing what he can do. He should be in that mix athletically. So we'll see where he can go. And then the other guy that I think is a wonderful guy, a good worker, good teammate, you know, has recovered now from an injury over a long period of time. We'll see what Adam Taylor can do and how he can fit in. We could develop into some real good depth at that position if these other guys step forward and come along. That will actually be exciting to see, and I'm anticipating that being you know, right now relatively thin, should not be if these guys come along and play like they can.
Mike, you had a stated goal of being top 3 in the Big Ten in rushing.
Did I say that? Yeah.
You did. Yeah. Last year you guys ran the ball 51.9, 52% of the time.
Yeah.
How much will you have to run it to try to achieve that goal?
Well, you know, hopefully we don't have to run it that necessarily a lot more than that. We just want to be more productive. That would be good. You know, we had our moments in big games. Like one of the reasons we beat Michigan State is we ran the ball well in that game. So we've got to find continuity week to week in running the ball. You know, we don't want to all of a sudden. We don't want to be in that game where you guys all know, I know in my history, when we're throwing 45 times a game, it's probably not for a good reason. So we don't want to get there. And I think that just with that whole idea, whatever the stats are, just that consistent, reliable running is really what we're looking for. That this is what we're gonna be week to week to week. We can count on being this no matter the opponent. And that will help everything else go better.
Did you find some more innovative ways to use that running personnel against UCLA?
Well, I think that we had a real good plan about what we wanted to do against that team, right? And so that is what we're always shooting for. I don't know that, you know, no, we did not necessarily invent any new plays. Our variety in what we did was great because the tailback played a part in the running game. The receivers had some stuff in the fly sweep around game, and the quarterback ran the ball. That was really that versatility made that game so much better because Tommy was effective, our runners were effective. We got some stuff to the receivers. We even ran the tight end around on a running play, right? So that is, we want to have a tailback-oriented running game, but it is awfully nice when you have a quarterback like we do that can do that to a defense from time to time. And then and because we give the ball so much to the tailback, we would love a receiver to be a factor. That's what the fly sweep has done for us through the years, is given us that versatility in the running game that has been good for us.
Mike, now that you've had a year to marinate in it, how difficult was it?
To do what, Sam? Marinate it? Yeah.
The juices of Nebraska. How difficult was the transition? Not for you necessarily, but for the players.
Yeah.
And how much further along are you now in that process, and how do you feel about going into a second spring, and how your players are sort of, vibing with you and your staff as opposed to having to make that transition?
Well, the transition is definitely a big thing, and we stated that before we even got into the year. Right? It's hard on players. They've got guys that are they got new coaches. Nobody's around that recruited them necessarily. So that part of it. But I will say this, that I think the players actually. Well, we had the chance to learn about each other through adversity, and we didn't necessarily want that like that. But as we look back on it, I'm most proud of the fact that everybody kept going. Everybody kind of went to work, and I think I told somebody the other day that nobody lost their minds. And we actually, with all the adversity that we had in a transition year where it could have been a real catastrophe, we played our best ball in the last month. I like that. And I think that says a lot about the players and a lot about the coaching staff. So it gives us a chance to definitely, when you talk, that's a lot of marinating there. But it gives us a chance to be better. And to grow and build that thing that's most important in the day-to-day world that we live in, and that's trust.
Have you seen in winter conditioning and just in conversations with players over the last month that there's just a different mindset after last season now that the transition is complete?
I feel like that every day that goes past, we have a chance to probably just, instead of thinking back at all about anything, just go forward. I mean, it feels like that to me. It feels like that part of it is taken over in the weight room and in the vibe of the football team. I get a lot of the questions that people had about who these people are, and for us, who the players are. I think all those are kind of just even day-to-day kind of disappearing into life, and that feels much more comfortable. Oh, I'm really any one group to single out to say you've got to be proud of the work that they did. Really think that Trent Bray did an outstanding job with this group in an area that we talked about as being, not very deep, not very experienced. I thought there was a lot of good football play, and as we went through it, guys developed more into playing. I look at a guy like Chris Weber, who just stepped in when Josh was hurt and played like he did, earned a scholarship through the course of time doing that. You look at a guy like Marcus Newby, that we didn't know where he was going to fit in. He learned, grew, stepped up, made plays, became a reliable guy. Michael Rose-Ivy, I think, improved as he went there. So you're right, a group that looked thin a year ago looks a lot better today. And then you have a guy like Dedrick Young that was a true freshman that played more snaps at linebacker than anybody on our team in total and had a really, really solid year. He is now kind of a grizzled vet coming back, having played a lot of football, and is a good player. So he provides you some stability immediately that you did not know you had a year ago going in. So I think Luke Gifford's getting healthy there. Just the front line, Michael Rose-Ivy, Banderas, and Dedrick Young. And then you got Gifford, Weber, and Newby. And then you've got a linebacker that did not redshirt, played all over special teams. I think has got a lot of ability. Tyron Ferguson is lined up there, and then Muhammad Berry is there. And then you've got a number of other guys like Brad Simpson that played a lot for us on special teams. Proud of what he did. He should grow into a better player this spring with more opportunity. And then there's some young guys, a guy like Jacob Weinmaster that is a kid from Colorado that redshirted. He's looked good as a scout team player. I would not be surprised if he found his way onto some of the special teams initially and then see what he could do football. So our depth there, I mean, it is like 4 or 5 deep right now for spring ball, and with including some of the guys that redshirted and the guys that played and some guys that are walking on.
Is Gifford out a little while longer?
Luke Gifford is going to go day to day. He's not going to be in any full speed tackling drills, but he can actually go into pass skeleton and into team as long as we're not tackling right now. So we're going to keep an eye on him, but he's basically cleared for all that other stuff, and we'll be able to head toward maybe playing in the spring game or maybe not. We'll make a decision with him on that when we get closer to that time. But he should get a lot of work.
Thank you. Talk about not tackling, kind of jarred my memory. What do you think of the Ivy League not tackling in practice?
Does everybody know about that? They came out with that deal about the Ivy League not tackling. Was that an in-season thing that they're talking about? Were they talking about spring ball? I think they were talking about in-season, right?
During the season.
And I think that is always good for a conversation. I mean, in our world that we live in, I think that's absolutely all fair game. And there's going to be more and more rules surrounding that as we go forward. And that's not bad. You know, we don't tackle during the season. Very, very rarely do we say, okay, let's go full speed tackling here once we get into the year. So it would not be a drastic change for us, nor would it be for the majority of people, I think. You know, actually taking people to the ground during a week of practice preparation, that would not be a really drastic change. I think it would be just a definition of what most people already do. So, you know, we're not close to being done with this conversation of how this is going to go. The NFL has been the lead in this, right? They've surrounded their practices with lots of rules, and I don't know what they are specifically, so I won't speak to them. But because of that, there's a lot of information about out there. We've got to continue to go about ways about making this game safer. We're making a big move in tackling to look at what we would say is a better way to do it and a safer way to do it. And we're just part of that picture, actually.
Hey, Mike, speaking of tackling and safety, what kind of conversations, if any, have you had with Nate Gary about the way that his last 2 games ended? And is there any kind of residual effect that you think that has going forward with him and just the way that he approaches things?
Do you think he'll be a marked man?
What's that?
Will he be a marked man?
I don't know. I mean, how do you expect, knowing him, for that to impact him moving forward, if it does at all?
You know, I don't think it will have to affect anything about how Nate necessarily approaches the game. We want to help him technically, and I actually think, and I think most people in here would agree, that last call on him was really one of those that is now a national topic and being used for referees everywhere, right? I mean, it is. When we had the Big Ten meetings, they discussed 2 hits. They had it up there on the video, and Nate's was one of them. That will be the kind of thing, and that is really what's hard about this right now. I think we have to, really not talking about Nate, we have to help define for players what is legal or not legal. Because really, 10 years ago, that hit, you would cut that up on a video and say, this is good form tackling right here. And it actually was, I thought, safe, too. His head was not in the picture, and I think they just missed the call. But that's the kind of thing we're going to be discussing. With Nate playing the game, Nate is a physical player, likes to play. we are, like I said, we are studying this. We've got people from an outside source that are basically working with us on both better ways to tackle, safer ways to tackle. We're going to incorporate it on. So that would include every player in our team, which of course would be Nate. But I'm not worried about Nate. Nate, as far as his approach to the game or how that might affect him, I think that what we just need to do is like we're going to do with everybody, just teach him a little bit better way to do it.
Coach, regarding the Billy Devaney hire, what was the thinking behind bringing in someone at that position, and what makes Billy a good fit there?
Okay, and Billy can come up here and talk to you in a little bit too, but we were actually talking about a hire like this, that the hire of Billy Devaney. We were talking about it months ago. Sean Eichhorst, Steve Waterfield, who I work obviously close with in the football world, really the birth of it was their idea about a veteran football person that could help in a number of areas, focusing on the evaluation and recruiting of athletes, but also a big help to me in any part of the football world we're talking about, and actually every part of our office. Billy has been as we looked at it and drew it up, not a lot of people necessarily qualified for the broad range of things that we wanted from this position, but you talk about somebody that has been a general manager and played a part in operations, played a part in evaluation of personnel, played a part in football, played a part in staffing, looking at the big picture of an organization, being kind of an on-time, full-time consultant in a lot of these areas. There's a lot of different projects in football, too, that we don't even necessarily talk about much in here. But one of my concerns is 11 o'clock kickoffs. So I'm going to have, talk to Billy about this, say, okay, this is an issue. I think we failed on our 11 o'clock kickoff games. What can we do differently during the week? What can we do differently on the morning of the game? Somebody else that can help me with some of these ideas. So that, I've always thought that the more heads that are involved in something and really truly studying it, with the ideas put together and you've got a good relationship involved in that, you got a better chance of coming up with a better idea. And so that was it. We talked about it for a long time before we actually put the idea of the job in motion, and then we started talking about people from there, and then it narrowed down to Billy in the end.
With Aaron Williams out for a couple of weeks, who's next to Nate?
Well, that's where we're going to be thin. Let me just make sure that, with Aaron being gone, and then Kyron Williams is over there, and then we'll have a group of guys. We're actually going to play with Nate. Avery Anderson is going to play safety, Sam. He played at corner a lot on the scout team. Body-wise, ability-wise, we think he might be better inside. And then you have a group of guys like Creighton Coley, who's been around, a freshman, Reed Carroll, who we were impressed with during the fall on the scout teams. Those guys that kind of, you can almost look at those scout teams, watch these guys play all year long, and just get a glimpse of this guy. This guy might have an opportunity to be a player. A guy like Reed is a good athlete. He's an aware athlete. He was an outstanding quarterback in high school, so he's got that kind of football awareness, I think, that is special for him. So, but that is an area of players that have played much with both Antonio and Aaron out initially that is going to look thin.
So it's Avery next to Nate.
Yeah, and I would imagine now with the way it is with Aaron being hurt, he can flop back and forth to the other side with Kyron.
Hey, from your perspective, what can Patrick O'Brien really get out of this spring that he wouldn't have gotten if he stayed in high school this semester?
Well, the first thing that Patrick O'Brien will get is just more knowledge of what we're doing, and that includes just the plays themselves, but also, what we expect out of each pass pattern. Learning what that pattern looks like, learning what the protection is about, and then learning the progression. That is always a process. So the earlier you get into the process, the better you should be able to learn it by the time you're asked to perform. So it gives them an extra half a year to do that, really, and it can be a bonus. Most of the guys that have come in early in my lifetime, in my coaching time, have been quarterbacks. And one of the reasons they like to do that is they can get a jump on all that part of the learning. Physically, he gets to play, and he gets to play with our team and our receivers, and then he also gets to train during that time, which will be good for him because they get, he came from a real good high school, real good coaches, but they'll get the best training of their life here. So he's getting involved in that too.
One more question. How do you deal with the hype and some of the circus that surrounds a quarterback that's highly touted as Patrick Mahomes?
Well, I think on the outside, we've got to help contain that a little bit with the work that Keith does, and we will not be able to control the attention that gets. I think it's somewhat natural for your interest, for the fans' interest. But as far as inside, he's going to get the normal attention that all of our guys get. It doesn't play a big part in our day-to-day way of how we function. He's going to be in the room. He's going to be learning. Then he's going to be expected to go out and practice and perform. That's no different day-to-day. He can get that extra hype from everybody else, but he won't get any extra from us. He's just going to. Let me check that injury deal just to make sure. You've got Aaron Williams and Antonio Reed are out for a while. Luke Gifford, as we mentioned, is going to be limited. Mick Stoltenberg is out for the spring. Kevin Williams is out for the spring with that wrist deal. And I think that's it defensively. Offensively, Brady Pelzer is limited to get started. LeVan Alston, you should see him practicing, but he will be limited as to all the full speed stuff and the interaction stuff, the pass skeletons that we do. Of course, DeMornay will be out, and Paul Thurston will be missing from time to time because of school. So, anybody have any other names? That's what I've got. Greg is going to play inside and probably continue to take his spots as outside. I think that probably right now our need is inside, but I think we need to maintain his versatility to play out there too.
Coach, would you ever think about having your spring practices in Florida or California or anything like that?
Well, is anybody doing that you know of? I thought the other day that there's some open fields in Ann Arbor. We could go up there and go to. No, I haven't really thought about it. I don't really know. The one thing about it is what's a big issue in college right now, besides the things we're talking about, safety, are time demands. And so you're talking about a kid's spring break and all those, because we have these guys a long time, right, during the year. So, I think all those things are going to be factors as people make decisions like this to go forward. And so I don't know how real that possibility will even be down the road.
What kind of money would that even cost, you think?
That's an extensive move with all of your housing, meals, your travel. The movement of all of the gear and video and everything else you need to set up shop. It'd be like what we have to do to go to a bowl game, which is extensive. So it's expensive.
All right. Well,
Thank you. Good to see you guys.